There are moments in life that catch you off guard, things you never saw coming that you couldn't even imagine happening. And I'm having one of those moments right now. Among the usual stack of utility bills and junk mail was an invitation I wish I'd never opened. My name, Gabriel Winters, was written in elegant, slanted calligraphy across the envelope. I slid it open with my thumb, pulled out a wedding invitation card that reads, "You are cordially invited to the union of Nathan Moreau and Tristan Cole." I stared at the words, blinked, and then read them again. And again. What the hell was this? Was this some kind of joke? Why were my best friend and my boyfriend's names together on a wedding invitation? I let out a disbelieving laugh and glanced around my apartment, half expecting someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha!" But there was no one. No hidden cameras, no punchline. Just me and the invitation, their names glaring at me from the thick, expensive paper. I turned the card over and over, the details growing more real by the second. The venue, the date, the names of both families signing off. Slowly, something cold spread through me. My boyfriend and my best friend were getting married. How? What? Why? We were all together just 5 days ago, and now this. The tears came before I could stop them, blurring the text. I stood there, frozen, unable to do anything but stare at the invitation as the reality of it hit me in waves. My name, was printed in bold letters inside, part of the guest list. They wanted me there. They wanted me to sit in that room, clapping, smiling, as they exchanged vows. The thought of it made my stomach twist, nausea rising like a lump in my throat. I pressed the card flat against the table, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I needed answers. Something, anything, to tell me this wasn't as cruel as it looked. I called Tristan first. The line rang once, then twice, before going dead. I tried again, but it was the same. The third time, I didn't even get a ring, just straight to voicemail. I didn't bother leaving a message. I scrolled down to Nathan's name. My chest clenched when it lit up on the screen. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that he'd pick up, laughing, saying, "It's just a joke, babe. Come over, we'll laugh about it." But the line rang again and again, without connecting till I was led straight to voicemail. I hung up, and my hand shook so badly, almost dropped the phone. I called again, Tristan, then Nathan, back to Tristan. Each time the rejection came quicker, sharper, until finally both calls went straight to voicemail without a single ring. They hadn't just ignored me. They blocked me. And just then, everything I'd been afraid of settled into my stomach like a stone. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Tristan had been my brother. Nathan was the love of my life. And now, without a word, they wanted me to sit there, a spectator, as everything I thought we had unraveled. I dropped my head into my hands and dragged my palms down my face. So this is betrayal, I thought. I had heard about it before, but never expected it would happen to me. I never saw it coming. Not from them. A part of me, just a small part, still wanted to believe it was a joke. That any second now, they'd burst through the door and laugh. But deep down, I knew better. Love had always left me behind. My parents, my siblings gone, leaving me orphaned, alone. And now, the two people I trusted most had shattered me in a way I didn't even know was possible. Hey Daydreamers, thanks for tuning in. If you're liking this story so far, tell us where you're listening from in the comment section and hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you don't miss any story uploads. Let's continue. Looking back, everything feels like a warning I ignored, a flashing red sign I walked right past. But at the time, it felt like the closest thing to home I'd ever had. I first noticed Tristan in college. Notice is the wrong word. He was impossible not to notice. Loud laugh, wide grin, the kind of guy who knew everyone and made sure they knew him. We had classes together, brushed past each other in the library, but never really spoke. He was too busy being magnetic. I was too busy being me. It wasn't until after graduation that our paths truly crossed. I was at a cafe when Tristan slid into the chair across from me like we were old friends. "Winters, right?" He grinned. "Philosophy lectures. You always sat 2 rows behind me." I blinked, surprised. "Oh yeah, that's me." He took a sip from my water glass before I could protest. "Knew it. You always looked like you were solving the mysteries of the universe. Thought I'd say hi before fate makes us strangers forever. I should have found it rude, but there was something disarming about him. An hour later, I was laughing at his stories, telling him things I hadn't planned to. He made it easy, and from then on he stuck, like a magnet. It wasn't long before I met his family. His mom hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. His dad called me son before I even knew where the bathroom was. They pulled me in like I'd always belonged, and after years of feeling alone, I let myself believe it. They knew about my parents, the accident. I expected pity, but they gave me warmth. "We'll look out for you, Gabe. Your family now," Mrs. Cole said, squeezing my hand across their dinner table. I remember swallowing back tears. Because that's the thing about being an orphan. You're so hungry for belonging that when someone offers you a seat at their table, you don't question why. Then, one night, Tristan brought someone new into the fold. We were at his place, sprawled on the couch with whiskey, when the doorbell rang. And Nathan walked in. He was magnetic in a quieter way. Where Tristan burned bright, Nathan drew you in with a steady glow. And when our eyes met across the room, everything seemed to shift. "This is Gabe," Tristan said, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "Best guy you'll ever meet." Nathan smiled, offering his hand. When our palms touched, I felt heat shoot up my arm. "Pleasure," he said, his voice smooth but soft at the edges. "I've heard a lot about you." We spent the rest of the night talking, tucked in a corner while Tristan played host. Nathan asked about my cafe, my favorite books, my movies, and he really listened. I walked home that night with a strange ache in my chest. Something had shifted. It didn't take long for Nathan and me to fall into rhythm. Nathan wooed me with all he had. It was so perfect that I couldn't help but fall, and all through dating him all I could think was, so this is what it means to be chosen by the perfect guy. Tristan cheered us on. At dinner parties, he'd nudge me, wink when Nathan leaned close. Finally, he'd laugh. My two favorite people together. About damn time. And I believed him. Every hug from his parents, every toast, every word Nathan whispered. I thought I'd found something rare. Family, love, a future. Back then, it felt like a dream. And the cruelest part? It was a dream I never wanted to wake up from. What gutted me wasn't just the betrayal. It was that I hadn't seen it coming. Not once. Sure, Nathan had pulled away sometimes. There were nights he claimed he was too tired to come over, and his texts had become shorter, more distant. Busy was his favorite excuse. I mentioned it to Tristan one night at our usual bar. I was nursing a beer, and he was working through his second whiskey. The music throbbed in the background, but I leaned in anyway, keeping my voice low. "Do you think Nathan's drifting?" I asked, my grip tightening around a glass. Tristan gave me that easy grin, the one that always made me feel like I was being ridiculous. "Drifting? Gabe, you're overthinking again." "Am I?" My voice cracked. "He's not around as much. Doesn't call as much. I keep getting this feeling that something's wrong." Tristan clapped me on the shoulder. "Couples need space, man. You can't be glued together all the time. It's healthy to breathe a little." I wanted to believe him. So badly. I nodded, convinced I was just being insecure, like Tristan always said. That Nathan loved me, and that was enough. But now, sitting here, staring at their names together on the invitation, I felt sick. How long had this been happening? Was Tristan covering for him even back then? Was Nathan lying in Tristan's bed on those nights he claimed to be too tired? The thought clawed at me. There had been moments, like when Nathan laughed a little too hard at Tristan's jokes, or when Tristan's hand lingered on Nathan's arm just a second too long. I had told myself it was nothing, just closeness between friends. But now, that excuse felt like a lie. If they'd been together behind my back, how much of what I had with Nathan was real? Was he ever mine, or was I just a convenient fool, filling the gaps until they didn't need me anymore? I had to see them. I needed to look Tristan in the eye, confront Nathan, and hear the truth from their mouths. I couldn't sit with the confusion anymore. I couldn't stay in this numb state, lost in questions that had no answers. I stood so fast the chair scraped against the floor, my hands shaking as I grabbed my keys. I didn't know what I'd say when I saw them, whether I'd scream, beg, or just crumble. All I knew was that I couldn't keep spinning in circles, wondering if this was all a cruel joke. I needed to know, even if it killed me. When I got to Tristan's place, my hand hovered over the door, my reflection faint in the glass. My face was tight, my eyes red-rimmed, but I didn't care. I knocked, hard, until the door swung open. He looked almost surprised to see me. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, shock, guilt, maybe even fear, but it vanished before I could name it. His face quickly masked itself, like a careful wall going up. "Gabe," he said, "what are you doing here?" I shoved the invitation between us, my hand trembling as I forced the words out. "You want to tell me what this is? Because my calls aren't going through, and I think I deserve an explanation." He didn't move, just glanced at the car before his eyes returned to mine. "This isn't the time. Is this real?" I pressed, my voice shaky. "Or is this some joke you guys cooked up for laughs?" Because I'm not laughing. I laughed then, but it was jagged, bitter. Just then, I heard a familiar voice from inside. "Babe, who is it?" Nathan appeared in the doorway, barefoot, wearing one of Tristan's shirts. The sight hit me like a punch, my chest constricting as my stomach sank to the floor. Nathan froze when he saw me. His expression hardened, his arms crossing over his chest. "You shouldn't be here." My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "So it's real then? You two are getting married?" I shook the card in my hand, my voice cracking. "How long has this been going on? Why didn't either of you tell me? And you had the guts to send me an invite." His face remained cold. If anything, he looked bored. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Harder?" The laugh tore out of me, ugly and raw. "You were cheating on me with my best friend, and now you two are getting married? Does that make sense to you?" My voice broke on the last word, choking on the weight of it all. Nathan's eyes narrowed, his expression colder than I'd ever seen. "Stop making me out to be the bad guy here, Gabe. I never promised you anything you didn't force yourself to believe." His words sliced through me, clean and sharp. "Wait," I whispered, voice shaking. "You said you loved me. You said I was the love of your life. We talked about marriage, about family." Nathan's gaze hardened. "You clung to something that wasn't real. Tristan pitted you. That's why it lasted this long." The words hit like a punch, and I felt the rage bubble up. My vision blurred, not with tears, but with fury. I could barely breathe. "What? Pity?" I turned to Tristan, my chest heaving. "Is that true?" He shifted, his shoulders tense. He opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence said enough. I staggered back, the invitation shaking in my fist. "How long?" I demanded, my voice rising. "How long have you been doing this? Months? Years? Was it when I was helping your sister pick out dresses last week? Did she laugh about it after I dropped her off? Did your mom?" Tristan flinched. That was all the confirmation I needed. The betrayal wasn't just theirs. It was the whole damn family. They'd pulled me in, called me one of their own, and all the while, they'd been setting me up to sit in a pew and watch the act unfold. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the house down, brick by brick. Instead, I backed toward the door. I couldn't be here anymore. Nathan's arm brushed Tristan's in a gesture so casual, so intimate, it felt like another slap. I turned and stumbled back into the night, the door clicking shut behind me with a hollow finality. By the time I reached my car, the sobs hit, raw, broken. My hands shook against the steering wheel, my chest heaving. I can't believe all this is happening to me. I drove back home in a daze, barely remembering how I got to my room. The pain was too much, and all I could do was curl into my bed, crying until I could barely breathe. "Mom, Dad." It hurt so much, I whispered to the emptiness, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. I'm alone again. The next few days blurred together. At work, I moved like a ghost, doing everything mechanically, barely remembering to smile, barely noticing anything. My barista had to guide me to the staff room one day, gently telling me that my expression was scaring customers. It wasn't that I didn't hear them. I just couldn't feel anything. And through it all, neither Tristan nor Nathan reached out. No one from their families either. A part of me was relieved. I didn't know how I would react if I saw any of them. I went to the store one day, hoping for some normalcy. But when I heard my name, it felt like the air was sucked out of my lungs. "Gabriel." I turned to see Clara, Tristan's sister, rushing toward me with her mother right behind her, both wearing smiles that could have been painted on. "Oh, honey," Clara said, grabbing my arm as if I hadn't been utterly torn apart. We've been meaning to see you. You've been so strong. Strong? My throat closed. I what? Her mother stepped in, eyes clouded with pity. You're such a true friend, Gabriel. The way you've supported Tristan and Nathan through all this. You've handled it with such grace. Not everyone could. The words rattled around in my head, as if I were hearing them from a distance. Supported them? Grace? What is she talking about? Clara's eyes widened. When Tristan told us you'd given your blessing, when you and Nathan ended things amicably, I nearly cried. Letting go like that, stepping aside for their happiness, it shows what kind of man you are. Selfless. Brave. I could feel my chest tightening, but I forced a smile, my lips trembling. Right, well, I just want them to be happy. Clara beamed, her hand resting on my shoulder. Your family, Gabe. Always. Family. You're right. I mumbled an excuse about needing to get home and walked away, barely holding myself together as their voices echoed in my ears, drenched in false praise. Outside, I leaned against my car, my breath coming in uneven gasps. They acted like they had no idea. Do they really take me for a fool? They made me sound like some noble martyr, like my heartbreak was a sacrifice for the greater good. I almost let myself believe it, but I'd learned better. Words were masks, and I was no longer fooled. I unlocked my door, but before I could step inside, my phone buzzed with a message from the cafe staff. Hey boss, sorry. Mind grabbing that box of syrups we ran out of? Totally forgot to add it to the list. I shut my eyes. Of course, the universe couldn't give me a break. With a sigh, I headed back to the mall. I was in the baking aisle when I heard Clara's voice again. Did you see his face? She snickered, tossing a bag of sugar in her cart. Still so clueless. He actually bought it. That whole thank you for being a strong friend nonsense. Her mother laughed softly. Poor boy. Tristan says he's always been too gullible for his own good. Imagine thinking Nathan really loved him. I froze. My hand gripped the cart so tightly it squealed. The cousin added, it won't matter soon anyway. Once they sell off that property, they'll be set. He'll have nothing left to cry over. Property? My blood ran cold. What were they talking about? My parents had left me a sizable inheritance, an estate. Did they mean that? My vision blurred and my stomach twisted. I staggered back, feeling like the floor had dropped out from beneath me. They couldn't have known. I had kept that document locked away. My lawyer had suggested the bank, but I'd refused. I'd even mentioned it to Tristan once, on the anniversary of my parents' death, but that was it. Had they gotten to it somehow? I turned and left the store, panic swelling in my chest. I headed home as fast as I could, bolted inside, and rushed to my safe. I swiped my fingerprint, my hands shaking. The document was gone. I sank to the floor, my chest tightening as my mind spun. Had Nathan and Tristan really taken it? Could they have found a way to get their hands on my father's estate? Was it even possible? They couldn't have. Nothing made sense anymore. Everything I had trusted had been ripped away. I drove straight to Nathan's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel, heart racing with every mile. When I arrived, I didn't even hesitate. My fist slammed against the door, urgent and furious. The sound of my knuckles hitting the wood echoed in the silence until finally, the door creaked open. Nathan stood there, his expression guarded, dressed in a crisp button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up like he was preparing for a wedding rehearsal instead of facing the mess he'd made. For a brief moment, my chest tightened. Old instincts kicked in, and I remembered why I'd loved him. He was still handsome, but then he smirked, that familiar smugness in his eyes. Gabe, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. What do I owe the pleasure? I shoved past him, pushing the door open fully before I even thought about it. Cut the act, I snapped. We need to talk. He sighed and closed the door behind me with a quiet click, his voice flat. If this is about the wedding, yes, it's happening. I cheated on you because I fell for your best friend, and I am sorry. You have to move on already. I didn't even flinch. This isn't about the wedding. I hissed, fury rising in my chest. It's about my property. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, but it was gone before I could register it. I stepped closer, my teeth clenched. I just checked my safe. The deed to my estate is gone. No one knows about it, but you and Tristan. So where is it? Nathan leaned back against the counter casually, as if we were having a normal conversation. Oh, that. He shrugged. You gave it to me, Gabe. No. I snapped, disbelief flooding through me. I didn't. That's impossible. Yes, you did. He smiled, a lazy smirk twisting his mouth. Remember game night last month? You, me, and Tristan. We were all drinking and having a great time. You got all emotional, said you loved me, and would give me anything. So when Tristan dared you to sign over your inheritance, you did. Right there. You declared your love in front of both of us. My stomach lurched. My knees felt weak, and I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. That's insane, I whispered, the words barely leaving my mouth. Is it? Nathan tilted his head, his eyes glinting. You wanted to show me you were mine. You put pen to paper, Gabe. Don't tell me you don't remember. I tried to focus, but everything was a blur of alcohol, flashing lights, Tristan's laughter, Nathan's low voice telling me to relax. I could almost feel the pen in my hand, the weight of it, but the rest? It was a haze, a fog I couldn't clear. The dizziness wasn't just the alcohol. Something deeper, darker lingered, and that realization hit me hard. Had I been drugged? With everything that had happened, it wasn't impossible. The panic clawed at me. I stepped back, my body shaking. Oh my God. Before I could process it, Tristan was right there, stepping closer to me with that casual air, his hand almost reaching for me. Do you remember now, Gabe? He sounded almost sympathetic. Honestly, I was shocked when you signed the paper. I took it to my lawyer. He confirmed everything. I was grateful, but his voice softened just a touch. It's just so sad that I couldn't feel the same. Don't worry, I'll treasure your love and keep it safe. I flinched, stepping away from him, trying to put distance between us. That was a mistake, I stammered, my voice breaking as I tried to find the words. I couldn't have given away my inheritance like that. You need to give it back. Nathan stood up straighter, his face suddenly hard, his eyes sharp with cold anger. That's not possible, Gabe, he said, voice low. I'm not one to turn down a gift. If I were you, I'd just let it go. It's not like you'll starve. Your cafe's doing better these days. A wave of fury surged through me, but I fought to stay calm. What was I supposed to do? My father had taught me that when backed into a corner, the best move was to retreat, regroup, and fight another day. So I sighed, trying to steady my voice. You're right, I said, nodding slowly. I don't remember the details. Maybe I was just too in love to know better. Nathan's smirk deepened, smug and cruel. Exactly. Love makes fools of us all. Everything inside me burned with the need to scream. But I held it together, forcing myself to smile and nod. I should go, I said, stepping back. Thanks for clearing that up. Nathan didn't try to stop me. I walked out, my body trembling, but this time it wasn't just from heartbreak, but from resolve. I wasn't going to be played like this. Once outside, I headed for my car. Instead of heading home, I turned the wheel and drove across town, straight to the one person I knew could help me. I arrived at Roman Wild's house and rang the doorbell. Roman Wild was a ruthless, successful lawyer, and he'd been managing my inheritance since my father passed. 6 years ago, when I first met him, he'd shamelessly flirted with me in front of my father. I'd avoided him since, but now, he was the only person who could help. Also, Nathan and Tristan knew nothing about him. Moments later, the door swung open, revealing Roman, shirtless, his hair still damp from shower. Behind him, a man in an expensive coat was slipping his shoes on, throwing me a quick, flirtatious smile before slipping past me. Roman didn't acknowledge him immediately. His eyes were still on the man as he walked out, a look in them I couldn't quite place. I raised an eyebrow. Busy night. He smirked, but his gaze flicked back to me, his demeanor shifting. You could say that. Roman, I said, my voice tight, focus on me. As I caught his eyes, following the man who had just left him again. His eyes assessed me, sharp, taking in my posture, sensing the change in my demeanor. Come in, he said, stepping aside. I walked in, the warmth of his house engulfing me. He tossed a shirt on and nodded toward the couch. Sit. You sounded frantic on the phone. I want to hear everything. And I did. I told him everything about the wedding invitation, the missing deeds to my property, the betrayal. I left nothing out, the words pouring out until I was empty, raw. Roman didn't interrupt. He listened, his expression going from casual curiosity to something sharper, his eyes narrowing as he pieced everything together. "You don't remember signing anything?" he asked, his voice softer now, but edged with steel. "No," I whispered, feeling the weight of the truth press down on me. "I was drunk. Or worse, they must have." I left out the drug part, 'cause I wasn't too sure. Roman let the silence stretch between us, the tension thick. Then, finally he spoke. "Listen to me," he said, voice steady. "They may have your signature, but this isn't over. We can fight it, especially if coercion was involved." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Scam. That's what this is, right? I've been targeted, used, by people who want to strip me of everything my parents left me. God, I am so stupid." Roman leaned back, his eyes scanning me, sharp as glass. "You trusted the wrong person," he said softly. "That's not a crime. What they did is, and I promise you we'll prove it." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling into my chest. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't completely alone in this. "Also, Gabe, I need you to be careful now," he added, his voice low. "Careful." I tried to mask the tremor in my voice, though it came out cracked. "You think they're going to kill me now?" "I'm not ruling it out," he replied flatly. "I've seen worse. Haven't you ever watched Law and Order? People kill for less. And you?" His gaze flicked over me, sharp as a knife. "You're an easy target, an orphan with no known relatives." I shivered, but I didn't back down. "That's dramatic." "It's reality," he said, his tone unwavering. "I've seen how greed destroys blood ties. You don't think it'll destroy friendships, too?" Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. Then Roman spoke again, his voice softer now, but firm. "I'll dig. Paperwork, timelines, anything we can use. But for now, don't speak to them again. Not until we've got something to throw back." I nodded slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had solid ground under my feet. It wasn't much, but it was enough to fight back. Roman wasted no time in getting to work. 2 days later, he called me. "Gabe, they're making their move," he said, his voice clipped with urgency. "I just got the paperwork with your signature on it. It's a transfer of your rights to the property. Everything's being handed over to Tristan Cole." I froze, my chest tightening. "Are you kidding me? Is that what they made me sign?" "Oh, I am so pissed right now." I could feel the rage building up in me, my hands clenched tightly around the phone. "Is there anything we can do to delay this?" "Anything at all." Roman's voice was calm, but I could hear the wheels turning in his head. "I'll drag it out. Tell them it's being processed. Give them enough positive feedback to stall the whole thing." "But you said the wedding's next weekend, right?" "Yes," I answered, still seething. "All right. In the meantime, don't let either of them corner you alone. Keep your distance." I hesitated, still worried about the danger stuff. Roman's voice turned serious. "Gabe, stop joking about this. That's what got you into this mess. I've seen worse, so do as I say." I swallowed hard, the gravity of his words hitting me. "Okay, Roman, I'm sorry." The call ended, and I was left with the silence of my thoughts, the anger still simmering. Over the next 3 days, Roman's digging began to show results. One evening, he slid a folder across the table toward me. "Clara," he said simply. Inside were court filings, settlements, and names I didn't recognize. The papers chronicled a man she'd conned 3 years ago. She played the part of the sweet, helpless lover until he'd signed over land to her. A quiet payout, no headlines, but the pattern was undeniable. "She's done this before," I whispered, the realization sinking in, my chest tightening with every word. Roman nodded, his gaze hardening. "Your best friend's family didn't just stumble into money. They hunted." I felt the air leave my lungs as the weight of it hit me. I wasn't just a victim of some random betrayal. I had been targeted, lured in by people who knew exactly what they were doing. People who specialized in scamming vulnerable orphans like me. Lonely, naive, desperate for love and family. I had walked right into their trap. The thought made me feel sick, but Roman wasn't done. He slid another file toward me. "This one's for Nathan," he said. The file was thick with evidence, fraud charges buried in another city. Money siphoned from an employer was swept under the rug with a quiet payoff. Nathan, it seemed, was nothing short of a thief. The memories of him sweet-talking me into paying bills, getting gifts, all of it felt like a slap to my face now. Tears burned my eyes, and I couldn't believe how badly I'd fallen for their game. This wasn't just about my property, it was about everything they had done, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. Keep digging, I urged Roman, the fire in me refusing to die. I could have focused on finding the loopholes to get my estate back, but I wanted them exposed. I needed to bring them down. A few days later, I received the rehearsal dinner invite. I could have ignored it, but something about the entire situation burned inside me. Roman had advised me to play the part of the gullible fool for now, to stay close enough to gather more information. And so I went. The dinner was a masquerade. Clara stood beside Tristan at the front of the room, her hair slicked back, wearing the role of best man with a smile that couldn't be more fake if it tried. I sat on the edge of the room, hands tightly clasped in my lap, feeling the weight of every smile, every whisper from the people I once thought of as family. How could I have been so blind? Had I really been a fool all this time? Believing in Nathan when he pulled away, trusting Tristan when he said I was overreacting, Clara's kindness, Mrs. Cole's warm embrace, all of it was a mask, a performance they were putting on, and I had been their unsuspecting audience. I studied their faces, each smile, each laugh, each glance exchanged between them, and the anger inside me started to boil over. They thought they had buried me. They thought they had won, but I wasn't done. I was unearthing everything they thought they'd hidden. I wasn't going to be the victim. I was going to be the one who ended this. By the time the wedding arrived, Roman and I were ready. The ceremony itself passed in a blur, like I was watching a scene I wasn't supposed to be in. I sat in the second row, hands tightly folded in my lap, watching Tristan's face light up as Nathan slid the ring on his finger. Their families beamed with pride, the crowd cheered, and I clapped along, forcing a smile. Roman had come with me as my date, offering silent support. When Nathan's gaze flickered my way, Roman pulled me closer, a subtle move to remind everyone I wasn't alone. Couples glanced at us, their attention briefly diverted, but I kept my eyes straight ahead. By the time the reception started, I felt a clarity that only rage could bring. Glasses clinked, silverware scraped against plates, and laughter filled the air. Then, Clara tapped her glass and called out, "A toast from Gabe." I rose, my fingers cold against the stem of my glass. Nathan looked smug, Tristan's face was tight, and Clara looked like she'd already won. I waited, letting the silence settle around me before speaking. "Thank you." I began, voice steady but sharp. "I didn't plan to speak tonight, but when your best friend marries your boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, well, you kind of owe them a few words, don't you?" A chuckle rippled through the room, but it felt hollow. Tristan's mother dabbed at her eyes, and Clara beamed. I let my smile slip, then continued. "I won't wish you both happiness. Love is rare, and when you find it, you should hold on tight. That's what I always believed." I paused, my voice faltering just enough to make them lean in. When I first met Tristan, he was like a godsend, and his family, they took me in like one of their own. I felt loved, like I had found everything I wanted. And when Tristan introduced me to Nathan, I thought, what a blessing. My best friend introduced me to the love of my life. I thought I had it all, the family, the boyfriend, the life. I let the words hang in the air, watching the guests. Well, until I realized fate isn't that kind. Sometimes when it feels too good to be true, it is. I set my glass down slowly, the crystal catching the light as I steadied my breath. I've been called naive, gullible, even foolish. I accepted those labels because it was easier to keep quiet, easier to swallow lies than confront them. The room shifted uncomfortably. Clara's smile faltered, and Tristan looked away. But over the past few weeks, I've learned that some people make a life out of kindness on Sundays and a business of theft on weekdays. Murmurs swept through the crowd like fire, but I pushed forward. This is my father's estate, the inheritance he left me. According to this, I signed it away. I was told it happened in a haze of alcohol, in a moment of love. But that was a lie. It was taken from me, with my signature forged in the middle of a lie. The whispers grew louder. Nathan's smile stiffened, and Tristan's face went pale. I turned to the Coles. This isn't just about the estate. This family targets people like me, orphans with money. They use love to steal. And Nathan, sweet Nathan, is their partner. Gasps filled the room. The Coles stood in protest, their father shouting something about lies. But I wasn't done. Roman stepped forward, calm and commanding. The notary stamp on this release is fake. It can be verified easily. And I also have records linking Nathan Moreau to embezzlement at his last job. Money that was funneled into accounts tied to the Cole family. The room erupted. Clara dropped her fork. Mr. Cole's face went white. Roman continued, his voice cool as ever. This isn't an isolated incident. Clara Cole has a history of similar schemes. Different victims, same pattern. Quiet payouts. Fraud has become a tradition in this family. The room was chaos. People shouting, chairs scraping, guests murmuring accusations. Nathan sprang to his feet. This is a setup, he shouted, his voice shaking. He's lying. But before he could say another word, the sound of metal clinking stopped him cold. Two officers walked into the room, the authority in their steps cutting through the noise. One read from a warrant. Nathan Moreau, you're under arrest for financial fraud and embezzlement. The room fell silent as the officer's hand clamped down on Nathan's wrist. He stammered, tried to twist away, but the cuffs snapped shut, silencing the hall. Tristan lunged forward. You can't do this. This is our wedding. His voice cracked, rage and panic spilling out. He turned to me, eyes blazing. You ruined everything. I met his gaze evenly, my heart steady despite the storm inside. No, Tristan, you tried to ruin me. All I did was show people who you really are. Clara tried to speak, but the room was already in motion. Some guests left, others shook their heads in disgust. The Cole family's facade crumbled in front of everyone, their respectable image dissolving. Amid the chaos, I stayed calm. Roman moved beside me, his presence grounding me. Then, as if the storm in the room wasn't enough, Roman did something absurd. He extended his hand. Dance with me, he said, his voice low. I laughed, shaky but genuine, and let him pull me to the floor. We danced while the world around us shattered. Tristan shouted. Nathan was led away in cuffs, and Clara sobbed against her mother. For once, I didn't feel like a fool. For once, I felt like the survivor. Epilogue. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled. Nathan stayed in custody. The charges stuck. Fraud, embezzlement, and enough evidence of coercion with my estate to keep him locked in legal hell. Tristan's family faced civil suits. Clara's victims came forward, emboldened, and Roman made sure they had teeth. My father's estate was safe. The injunction held. In fact, with Roman's maneuvering, I had more security around it than ever before. As for me, I got my revenge, and in its own way, that was cleaner than love had ever been. The end. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoy this story, share your enthusiasm in the comment section, and don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you don't miss any story uploads. See you in the next one.